Native Instruments Machine Unboxing Setup and Configuration. Welcome to Build or Buy. I'm your host, Gil Boyd. Thanks for joining us. Today we're going to take a look at a product that we've been talking about for quite some time, and this is our USB 2 audio interface. Now this product is all about virtual instruments, and the one we're going to look at first is a controller, and I'm going to give you 4 reasons why we picked this particular device. Number 1, this is a USB 2 audio interface. Number 2, this is a sound effects triggering device, or think of it as an instrument, so it's multi-purpose. And number 3, this includes Native Instruments Komplete. Now, Komplete is a virtual instrument. It's a plethora of virtual instruments. The version that comes with this is the lowest version, but it gets you in the door that you can then go through the upgrade path, because there's 4 versions. There's Komplete Select that's included with this, and we will download this once we create the account and log in and then update and then start pulling that stuff down. Now, of the 4 versions, this is the lowest version: Komplete Select, Complete, Complete Ultimate, and then Complete Ultimate Collector's Edition. And we'll get a link up to all that. And of course, the 4th reason this kind of put us over the edge to get this particular device to talk about for a USB audio interface. Have you ever seen the music video with Chris Stapleton by Justin Timberlake? Say Something. That was done one take, the first take. Amazing video, beautiful cinematography. I suggest if you get a chance to watch it at least 3 times. Pay attention to that instrument that is being used in the beginning. Justin Timberlake does an amazing job. It looks like one of these devices. Now, there's a new version of this device out that is a standalone device. But for what we need to do for content creation and sound design, the one that plugs into the computer we think is the best bang for the buck. And considering what's going on with the holidays right now, this might be a good addition to your repertoire. So what we're going to do is take a look overhead with an unboxing and setup. What's going to be required? We're going to need not only this device, a USB cable that comes with it so we can plug into the computer. We're also going to need speakers. Now, what's going to be unique about the way we're going to set this up, we're going to need to be able to plug in the speakers so that I can hear it here in the studio, but also that you'll be able to hear it online through the video. So what I'll do is get the speakers out, plug in one speaker so I can hear what's going on, and I'll plug the other input, because I'll have 2 inputs. I don't want to call it stereo, but input 1 and input 2. I'll have one input that can go in with the mics, because it's real crucial for those of you that know about audio. All the audio needs to come through one source so that it's all in sync. That's extremely important. And aside from the issues we can have with Windows about latency, DPC latency, that's something of a topic for a different video that we hope to get to. So what we're going to do is pull this out and unbox it, take a look at it. We'll need to go online and create the account. We're going to walk through all that process, and I hope you guys enjoy this, so stay with us. So we've got the device. I've got a cover for it. They also make a case you can put it in. Since we're going to have speakers, we're going to look at that. So kind of think of that as the second unboxing. And I'm going to need a couple of cables to plug it in. And that's something I want to get into with the speakers. Now, as we go through this, after we do the unboxing and setup, what I want to show you guys, what I want to do is show you some tools that are also kind of in this family. Because as an instrument trigger, I always like to look at things that are not only multi-purpose, but something I can grow with. In other words, this instrument can be used by itself, but it can also be used with other instruments. And this brings me to the point of the 4 reasons why we chose this device. The one reason that I have a problem with this that I don't like, this is a finger instrument. You use your fingers to activate it. It has a tactile feel to it, which is great. For most people, I think that's the way to go. But being a musician, a percussionist, there are some sounds I hear in my head where I need to feel the rhythm of the drumsticks to execute those sounds. So even though this device has a lot with it, a lot going for it, I may still supplement this or augment it with another device that will give me that tactile feel. So when we get through with the unboxing and setup and doing the installation, I'll show you some links, 4 devices, this being one of this family. We'll take a look at 3 different sets of speakers, and I want to pay attention to the connections on the speakers and show you why the speakers we chose, why we chose them. And then I'll also show you a couple of speaker stands, pros and cons. Speakers need to be about at ear level. Most people are sitting. I am standing. If I were doing a live setup, well, we'll get to that in a couple of minutes. So what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to get the computer set up so that we can plug this into the computer. But first, I will go ahead and do the unboxing so we can take a look at this overhead and see what we've got. Y'all ready? Okay. That is a deck saver. The reason for the deck saver, this is a lid that I can put on top of this to keep the dust off. If I need a travel case is available. I don't see traveling anymore with something like this. I just need a dust cover, and that's what this is for. Okay, so we'll set that aside. And that is the Maschine production and performance system. These are the pads. Once this is all plugged in and hooked up, Native Instruments has this laid out where it's really simple and easy to use. Now, I got to let you know, because I have been a customer of Native Instruments for quite some time, there will be a list of instruments that I'm going to see that are not part of this package that will allow me to download and install on this machine. So you're going to see a whole lot of stuff there. And that's one of the reasons for the new machine, because I outgrew the old machine. Either upgrade the drive, which I had gotten to the point, upgrade the drive, or build a new machine. I needed to do both, so we built a new machine. So this will hook up. So that brings us to another point. This particular device from Native Instruments will work on just about any computer, laptop or desktop. The advantage of it on a computer, they say an i5, I would take a look at it the same way I would a streaming computer. I would put this on at least an i7, because once you get this many voices working and you start using it to create rhythms or sound effects, whatever sound design you're doing, you're going to want something more powerful, something with more processing power that'll do that, that'll handle that. So you can get by with an i5, but I would do an i7. Now, for those of us that are building AMD machines, I would look at something like, again, with the Ryzen, with the X570 chipset. I think it'd be perfect for something like this. So, content creation. Let's get going. So this device is what we're going to be working with. And the speakers we've chosen to work with, these are Mackie speakers. And I want to look at these kind of separately, because we'll do an unboxing of these speakers. This is a pair of nice speakers, decent speakers. These are the CR5. Why this particular model? Well, I have a set of these Mackie speakers on an audio interface at my other, what you want to call your battle station. This would be like Battle Station 1, that's Battle Station 2. Battle Station where I do the video shooting, and Battle Station where I do the video editing. Two different areas, two separate requirements. So to do this, I wanted to get a set of speakers that would be more able to accomplish and do the other things I'm doing. So I wanted something more multifunction. The original set we had were just speakers. I plug them into the audio interface, they do what I need. But plugging into the audio interface might sometimes mean also I might want to plug them into the laptop, or I might want to plug them in with the smartphone, in which case Bluetooth might come in handy. Now, granted, Bluetooth is not the way to go with audio, but there are sometimes that might come in handy. So this particular set is the CR5 BT for Bluetooth. And all we'll do is an unboxing. We'll get these out, take a look at them. I'll set one up here on the desk, and then the other I'll set aside because it won't be plugged in. I've got to route audio into the mixer. And I'll even put a link up to the mixer we're using. Rack mount, we have a Focusrite. This is the rack mount that we've been using for our Shure microphones that we use for our live events that I now use in the studio. So this will be an unboxing of these speakers. And again, it's just a pair of speakers, but it's part of the process. I've been sitting on this for quite some time. I've been eager to do this, but there have been so many things going on, so much technology. You just, we're doing it now, and I think right now is the right time of the season. Oh, wow. It's been so long since I ordered these. These are larger than the other set. I believe the other set must be the CR3. These are the CR5. Wow. I didn't realize. And of course, they've got their acoustic foam pads. There's a pair of them there to sit on. Yeah, these are bigger than the others. And I've got the cables to plug into them. And again, the acoustic foam pads. It helps for sound isolation. I want to show you an overhead shot of these so you can get a better look at them. Okay, as we look at the fronts, you have a primary speaker and a satellite speaker. And I believe this is the primary speaker with the controls on it. For those that are not familiar with Mackie, Mackie makes mixers. They make professional equipment. So these are studio monitors. Powered, requires electricity, a packet of desiccant. But here's the important part, the front. As we take a look at these, we have an extra, let me get these turned right. If you notice, there's a button for Bluetooth. There's a volume control for that. We have a tweeter, a piezoelectric tweeter. So, two speaker system. We've got the logo over here for Mackie, and we've also got an auxiliary input and a headphone input right down here. So now I want to flip this around. We'll take a look at the back. And these do not have covers on them, so they always stay exposed. And that green around there has a little bit of a light to it. You'll see it when they get plugged in. But the business side, the back side, is what I want us to take a look at. Now, this is to plug in the satellite speaker. And of course it's color coded, so we get our red positive, black negative. It's powered and it's ported, CR5 BT. But what we have are 2 1/4-inch inputs. We also have our 2 RCA inputs. And at one time, I think this model had a 3.5 millimeter plug-in input, which doesn't show here. And it shows position for powered speaker position, left or right. So depending on how we set them, because of where we need to put it with the power. And there's a power button. And if we get the other one, set it beside it. Pretty simple layout. Got to have speakers to make this work, so might as well get this done. But I didn't see any point in a separate video unboxing for just a set of speakers. And again, we have the logo, piezoelectric tweeter, the speaker on the bottom. We'll flip this one over. And on the back, it's pretty simple. The satellite speaker is the passive speaker, and there's a connection. So from here to here connects these 2 speakers. All the controls are on the powered speaker. And of course a power button there. Basic layout, set of speakers. I like the sound of these. I'm also a fan of Servo and Vega. You don't hear much about that. Pioneer used to have a great set of speakers for studio monitors. Don't hear about that either. JB Lansing, same thing. There's a couple other brands now that show up that we'll take a look at. Cables are included. We've got the RCA phono with the 1/8-inch plug. So this could go from speakers to computer, laptop, whatever. So I can plug these into a laptop because they're powered. And also the speaker wire. And if I wanted to get particular and technical, I could get a heavier gauge wire. But the wire that comes with these is adequate. And the connections on the speaker leads are tinned or tined, whatever you prefer. So that way they will clamp better and won't flare out on us. So 2 cables. So a pretty simple setup. And if anybody wants to ask which speaker am I going to plug in, I can only plug in one. It'll be the powered speaker. The satellite I could plug in, but I won't, because I won't have an input on the back of it. There's also a manual included that talks about quick start guide. Pretty nice, pretty handy. We'll set that aside. Now let's get to what this is all about. Maschine. Nice box. And again, there's a newer version of this out, and this still has the factory seal on it. We don't even get that on motherboards anymore. Cut that seal. We're going to link up to all these products so that way you'll know what we're looking at and what we're talking about. And if this looks like something you want to do for the holidays, you'll be in business. So let's take a look. Pull the lid off. Nice. Looks a lot different in person. So we'll take that out of the box. It's not real heavy either. So we'll set that aside. We have a package with the very crucial serial number in here. And I'm going to need to get the computer and set it up here by me so we'll be able to plug this in when we get ready. It has setup instructions that we need to follow. And then we also have another little box in here that should have our cables we need, which will be the USB cable, the power cable, and the adapters for the power cable for international. All we need is USA. This is nice. Even Blackmagic does that for the international market. So all we need to do is clip this in and we will be in business. Ready to go. Okay. Just that simple. So the box, just to look and make sure there's nothing else in there, a desiccant, so we can set the box aside. I want us to take a look at this and examine it and look at the features, because the connections on the back are what are really, really important. So I will gingerly get this out. See how we're going to tilt that so we don't get a reflection. And that's a protective cover over the knob. That knob not only turns, has a tactile feel, but press down on it to select. And these knobs, of course, all turn. And these controls will light up showing us what's going on. The instrumentation for this should be pretty simple and straightforward once we get it plugged in. It's kind of one of those devices, if you've never seen one, it'll kind of blow your mind. And I think it should prove to be quite fun. So we'll get our cables ready. I like what they've done with their USB cable. They've even got their little lead core on there to help isolate signals so there's no extra noise or hum coming in. So the nativeinstruments.com/setup-machine. So we're going to put that URL in. I'll include all the information to get this whole process going. And I've got to put in the hardware code. I'm not going to show you the hardware code because without that hardware serial number, I'd be SOL. But it's on this card, a little black card in this little black envelope. And what else we have in here? Machine instructions and some decals if you're into that. Okay, so the next step now, we need to get the computer set up so we can plug this in, get this configured. So we're going to set that aside. But first I want to do is take a look at some of the buttons. And we'll go through and try to describe some of this. Let's see if we can zoom on that just a little bit better so you can get an idea of what those pads look like. Plus and minus, semitone, plus and minus, clear, clear auto, copy. These buttons are multifunction, but I just want you to be able to see and read so you see what I'm seeing. Then the other button, and now again, these white buttons will light up, and then you've got the dark buttons that we should be able to see the text on these once they are lit up. But everything has a place and a purpose. So if you've never seen one of these, and for the first time, I hope this video helps. We have the ability to choose MIDI channel, the plug-in instance, the arranger, the mixer, the browser, plug-in browser, sampling, a back and forth, file save, settings, auto, macro set. Then around this button, we have pitch and mod, just like you'd have on a MIDI keyboard. And there's a ribbon controller right here as well. There's the ribbon controller for special effects. So pitch, mod, performance, effects select, notes, external lock, tempo tune, swing position, velocity, volume, note repeat, arpeggiator. It's a pretty incredible device. And going down the list on these buttons, fixed velocity, I believe that says 16 velocity, yes. Fixed velocity, 16 velocity, scene section, pattern, events, variation, navigate, duplicate, select, solo, and mute, or choke. And these buttons across the top, fixed velocity, 16, pad mode, keyboard, chords, and step. And once we have this plugged in, these buttons will also light up. We'll see what they do. But what I want to see is around the edge. Around the front edge, nothing. On the left and right, nothing. Substantial case. It looks like it's got a key lock here on the left side, like you'd use on a laptop. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, you got a place there where you can put a key lock device like you use on a laptop. That's handy. What I want to see is the business end, the back end, where the connections are. And because this is USB, external power supply, I like that. So I think probably we'll start on the far right and work our way to the left. We have a power button, turn it off and on, power tap, the USB connection. We can also plug a pedal into this. We have access to MIDI I/O, where we can use an actual MIDI cable if we don't want to do it through USB, depending on what other device we plug in. We have a line in 1 and 2. We have a mic in. We also have a gain control for the mic. And of course that is a 1/4 inch. It doesn't have XLR on here. Then we have line out left and right, and a line out volume control. Everything right now is set at minimum. We can plug headphones into this, and we also have a headphone volume control for that headphone plug. So if we use speakers for the line out, or if we use headphones, we're good to go either way, whatever your environment is. So, and looking at the bottom of it, we have a hardware serial number, and the base looks like it's made of aluminum. Looks good. I won't show it because you don't need to see the serial number, but you can take my word for it. So now that we've looked at it, and it's got rubber feet on the 4 corners, looks very well made. So now we'll get the computer up here, get it turned on so we can get the account. We'll go over to that and then take the next step. So that's the device. That's the unboxing. Next part will be the setup. Got to get the computer up first. Okay, so we've got the computer up. We need to do power. In fact, we'll start at the top and work our way down. We'll do keyboard right below the USB because we're going to be using the DAC on here. It's higher quality for this audio interface. So we got keyboard and mouse plugged in right below. We will do the monitor, which is HDMI. Now, that's going to bring us up another interesting point when we get this video plugged in, because the funny thing about Windows, it likes to take over, and here's your structure. If you plug in an external monitor, like say a TV for a big screen, that becomes display number 1. Your computer display, whatever it is, becomes display number 2. Okay, audio is routed to whatever display number 1 is, so we have to go to control panel and change that. And when we plug this in, this should be the audio device, but it may not be. We may have to change that. There's a tool I'm going to show you at the end of this that makes all that real simple and easy for switching. It comes in real handy if you're on something like Zoom, where you're trying to figure out, is it the application Zoom? Do I need to look in the taskbar, or do I go to the control panel? This program simplifies all that, and it's free. And I'll put up a link and I'll show you that too. Okay, so we've got our keyboard and mouse, we've got our video, got to have power. We will turn on, energize. Now once this is up and running, some of the information I'm going to need for this account, I'll show you up on screen, and we'll do an overlay so that way and we'll also put a link up to this particular product with the specs so you know what you're dealing with. It doesn't take up a lot of space. How big is it? Approximately 12 inches by 12 inches. How heavy is it? I would peg it at about maybe about the same, about maybe 10 pounds. It's lightweight, but it's solid. And I can't use drumsticks on it, but I can use finger taps. So I'm eager to see how responsive it is to what we want to do. And depending on the kind of feedback we get on this device, which we've been trying to do for a long time, after we do this, we have 2 Thunderbolt 3 audio interfaces and some other stuff to do. But depending on the feedback we get on the Native Instruments machine, we may come back and do another video on this about integration with something like PreSonus. I'll just leave it at that. Okay, computer's up. So I've got some data I need to copy off for this presentation. Okay, while we are copying the contents of these files over, I'm getting this ready for us to work with. Okay, in the URL. Okay, what I'm doing now is I'm going to plug in, and I'll put together this URL and bring it up and show you on screen, and I've got to plug in the hardware serial code. So I'm copying this into a document so that way I can proof it while I'm doing it before I put it up. www.native-instruments.com. This specifically is Maschine MK3, in case you want to know. So, okay, got that all in there. Now, this little piece of paper that has the machine hardware serial number, that same piece of information should be on the back of this device, and it is. It also has a device ID on here as well. So there's a Maschine MK3 hardware serial number, and there's also a device ID number. So it'll be curious and interesting to see if it's going to ask for it once we go online and do this, create the account. So we just do what it says, which should be pretty simple and straightforward. Okay, we're going to bring up our browser, and let's go to the computer, and I'll show you where we're headed. Forgot to plug in the network. I'd moved the cable to get it out of my way, so oops. And remember, these are virtual instruments that we're getting ready to install. That's what a lot of this is all about. That's the reason for that secondary NVMe drive, to give us quick access to those virtual instruments. And this is one of those things, we're not doing a C drive install. We're going to be installing this to that secondary drive, which I'll take a look at to make sure it's D drive. All these little details matter. Otherwise, we would run out of space on the C drive. It'd be easy, but we'd run out of space. With a 2 terabyte, we'd be good for about a year, but then we'd be trying to transfer. So I want to do this clean, straight from the beginning, where those instruments go to that second drive. There's still a lot of stuff that's going to be on C drive. It's just the way it is. But I'm going to put the instruments as much as I can on that D drive. So I have to keep in mind where the instruments install and what drive I'm using to do the stuff like this, applications. So now we're going to execute that application, and at some point when I need to put in the serial number stuff, I won't show you that, or else I'll blur it out. But I want you to be able to see the process, how this works on a Windows computer. If you're new and you're a beginner, you don't want to be intimidated by this. It's just, it's a process. When you start installing virtual instruments, it's a process, and it takes time. And this is the first step for this instrument so we can get it up and running. So what we need to do is go to the URL with Native Instruments. I'll put a link up to that. And what we'll do is download the application. Once we download the application, we execute it. We have a chance to take a look at what we need to do to install the application, or else to create a new account. I already have an account, so now I'm logged in, and I'm going to take a look at the instruments that I've got access to. So the software, add a serial, search for products, available updates, not installed, I have 30. I still need to register machine, but I haven't seen anything for that yet. So to add a serial, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to pull up the serial number for the product. Once I plug that in, this should activate it. Windows needs to be vector-based, not raster-based. What do I mean by that? The Windows interface is bitmaps, which is really annoying because I like to have stuff at a higher resolution, a higher font, a higher pixel count than what's normally. In other words, I have the resolution set to zoom in beyond what they recommend, usually about 150%. Even at 1080, it's easier for me to see. But most of these applications are drawn for 1080 with the standard resolution. They don't understand when you zoom in on something, some of that stuff you can't see. They don't redraw the screen. So there's information on the bottom of the screen we can't see that I have to go and change the display to zoom out. It's annoying. There's very few applications that do that, but it's been a problem. It's going to become a bigger problem unless they do something to solve it. Because when you're like on a 4K display, so much of this stuff becomes so small, you need to be able to make those icons, those images, and that text larger without it becoming pixelated so you can read it. Right now, I'm trying to make it super large so that I can see it even at 1080. But I'm trying to tell you and identify. I want you to understand what's going on while we're doing this. So let's go to the taskbar. So we'll take the taskbar. We will automatically hide it and see if we see the bottom of the screen. And we do not see enough of the bottom of the screen. So what I'm going to have to do is minimize, do a right click on display settings, and see I have that set at 150% because it's just easier to read. So what I have to do is change that back to the recommended, which takes everything and makes it really, really tiny. But I'll be able to see the bottom of this screen right there where it says add serial. And if you notice how big it is on the screen, they don't redraw that. There's too much picture. So I'll click on add serial. Your product serial is being registered to your account. This may take up to 10 minutes for product registration. Nice. Thank you for registering Maschine MK3 hardware. You have successfully registered Maschine MK3 HW hardware. Next, visit the Not Installed tab to install or locate it. Don't see a product? To reload your product list, click the swirling icon to the top right corner. Register another serial or view products not installed. We're going to view products not installed. And we got a bunch of them. And the only one we need to concern ourselves with right now would be contact is important, but we're looking for, let me zoom out on that. I've got some beautiful instruments in here. The orchestra, that's a nice set. I'm looking for, let's see, I could do an install all. In fact, I think I may do that so that we can, yeah, there's everything. Okay, here we are, add to the library. I have several instruments that I have purchased that have never been installed yet. So what we need to do, native access copyright. Okay, here's where it's going to ask me. It's what I need to do. I need to do the custom. It shows the download location to the C drive, the application location, and the content location. So these install preferences I've got to change. The VST32 and VST64, that's for the virtual instruments, and for the virtual VST plugins, I will leave those on C because there's other applications as we build and start doing this integration that are going to be looking for that kind of stuff. So I need to keep it all in the same place. So I'll let those go to C. But the other stuff for content and everything, I want that to go to the D drive. So this is where we start doing that. So I'm going to cancel this, and I'm going to show you how I got to that up here in the top right where I could refresh the screen. I didn't need to do that. Or I could click on the account for preferences. And for preferences right here is what I need to change. I've got file locations and settings. So yes, enable usage data tracking, learn more about it. I'm going to leave that. I'm okay with it. File locations are what I'm concerned about. So we're only going to change the download location to the F drive, and we're going to change the content location to the, so we're going to change two locations. Content will go to this PC and to the instrument drive. So that will be users public documents. Users public documents. So we'll select that. So we only made two changes from the default. Our download location, which will be a spinning drive, we left our application location alone. The content location, we've gone to D drive. That's where our instruments are at. And the VSTs, the 64-bit VSTs, which is the virtual instruments, and the 32-bit virtual instruments, we've left those alone on the C drive. So the only thing we've changed is where stuff downloads to, and the content, which is on the D drive, the NVMe. So I hope that makes sense, but you got to have all that stuff in your head when you're doing this, and sometimes trying to explain the reason why or the reason why not, it's easier to show you why by doing this. If someone's never worked with instruments, it's just easier to show them this. We have to see this the way the software sees it, and the way the software sees it is the only thing that matters. So that's why we're doing this. And hopefully this will keep these 3 drives now integrated, but that means those 3 drives are always going to need to be there. And we should never have to, once we've done this, we should never have to worry about fussing with it again. So we've got downloads and content, the only two changes we've made. Now all we need to do is save that. So we'll save. So now when we say install all these instruments, like it says add to library or install, but that's some of the kind of stuff I was mentioning, like, you know, if we need to do a separate video about some of these things, how to do that stuff, I'll be happy to, based on the kind of feedback we get. So again, this is something for beginners, but you need to know about this stuff when you start doing multiple drives. And you know, it's kind of like who's on first, but it's like, where's everybody at? You just have to know where it's at. And that's what we're doing. Okay, so we can go with what's already installed. And I've got 30 products to install. And the orchestra, which is a phenomenal instrument, I need to add it to the library, but I have not activated it, and it's already updated. So I've got to go back and work through all that. So what I will start with, I'll minimize that for a minute. What I want to look is at the browser and see if it tells us anything else. Okay, first step we did, download, install, and run Native Access. The second step we've done, enter the serial number into Native Access. And it tells where the serial number is at on the card, as well as where the serial number is at on the back of the device. Then step number 3 is install the software. Okay, we're getting ready to do that right now. Create the necessary preset database. Install the machine software and library and all other software you need. If you already have machine software, upgrade it. In order to create the necessary preset database, the Machine 2 software should be launched once in standalone mode prior to being used as a plug-in. Okay, when you run Native Access for the first time, you'll be asked to select a target folder. Native Access will install all product content, such as sample libraries, into this target folder. Sample content in particular takes up a lot of space, so you may want to install everything into a dedicated drive, which is what we've done. Now, it's important on Windows computers. You need to point Native Access to your preferred VST plugin folder. Once selected, all Native Instrument VST plugins will be installed into this folder. We have access to the manuals, we have access to hardware update, firmware updates, and drivers, and then learn how to use Machine. So what I'm going to do is look at over here at updates and see what we can find. Okay, we can download the manual, Maschine MK2, here we are at Maschine MK3. Okay, we need this. Now there's 3 downloads here. Top one is for an Apple, the other 2 are for PC. There's a firmware updater and a controller driver that we need. So I'm going to download both of those. First the firmware, which we can't do anything with until we get this thing up and running. And we want that to go to the spinning drive, and that's where that will be. Okay, firmware updater, I've downloaded that. The controller driver, we're downloading that. By default, that wants to go to the same place every time. Public downloads, incoming, applications, Native Instrument. Okay, the firmware, the Native Access, and now for controller driver. So that takes care of Maschine MK3. And for more info about that, the package installs the Windows driver for the Maschine MK3 controller, only required for Maschine MK3. Alrighty, go back to this again. Let's see what the other one tells us. I have to go all the way out and all the way back in. Complete audio driver. We don't have that audio interface. Maschine MK3. Okay, the controller driver. Let's see what that says. Installs the controller driver. When I go back, it takes us all the way back out. Well, that's kind of annoying. Let's pull down the manual. Maschine MK3. We will download the manual. And if we don't have PDF installed, then we'll need to pull it. I think we do. So we're going to download that to the spinning drive. PDF files. We'll create a folder for instruments, for Native Instruments. So there's one PDF file. Let's download the Getting Started guide, the second PDF file. Good, it'll stay right there with those two together. And for the third, we'll download the DAW control cheat sheet. A DAW is a digital audio workstation. And that in effect is what we're doing, creating a digital audio workstation. and software. Maschine MK3, and for machine, let's see, getting started guide. Connecting the controller, setup examples. They should do a little bit better documentation. Everything you need to get started is here. Well, matter of opinion. Setup machine. So, not very good documentation. So what we need to do, the manual, let's take a look. New features machine 2.8. So the software to control this would be Maschine MK3, and the software is Machine 2. So we need to download that software. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we will create a folder here on the browser for NI Machine, and then we'll take and click and drag and put that link in there so it's easy to find. And the PDF files we can open, we've got them on the hard drive now. So we've got the software machine. We need to download that. We'll right click, copy the address so that I don't lose this link. Control V, enter. And this will take us how to set up machine. So we did the registration and installing. We didn't watch the video. This is where we originally started. We've done step 1, 2, and we've done step 3. And then it goes to manuals, and it says the learn machine. How to get started, how to make your first beat, machine tutorials, and the machine blog. So how to get started, I'm going to click and drag that folder over. So I've got 2 links in. Now what I want is how to get started. Copy address. I don't want to lose this stuff where I'm at. Too hard to get back the way they do things. Watch how to get started. So that's a blog. I'll click and drag and put that in the folder. So I got 3 links in there. Finding your sounds, creating your first pattern, creating a melody baseline, creating an arrangement. All we want to do is get finished with the installation. And this is dated from, 2018. So their expectation is that you know a lot about what you're doing, whether you do or not. So we have an addendum, we have a manual. So if I pull this on the manual, addendum first, we'll download the file, 16 pages. It goes with the others. Kept the link up. Now we'll download the user manual software, again from Machine, 717 pages. Wow, it's a pretty big document. We'll go back over here to the left. So the machine software we need to pull down. And the software looks like install the software. Well, all these are instruments. So I hear what they're saying, but those are instruments. When we install those instruments, we're going to install a machine. So let's take a look. I don't see anything about the instrument. Now I'm going to have to change my resolution again. Display settings to zoom out so that I can see everything, because they don't redraw the screen where I can do that conveniently. Now I'll zoom back in so we can see. I see a lot of instruments, the contact, factory, library, and contact, but I don't see the software to get this up and running. So I'm going to zoom out, and I'm going to install the contact, factory, library. But so that I can see, I'll change my display back again. That's annoying. They need to redo the interface. I hope by showing you this, it'll help you to understand what you're facing sometimes. So now we can see what we're doing. I'm going to let it go ahead and just install everything. And that's going to take a while. Now they all say waiting. Let's see where it starts. So what we're going to do while that's waiting is we're getting the software installed. Once it's installed, we should be able to plug this in, plug it into the computer, and we should be able to bring it up. I've been real eager to do this, but it's just everything takes time. And I'm seeing this device new for the first time, just like you guys are. We've got a pretty fast connection, so this shouldn't take too long. It will install the libraries that are already activated. It will not install the libraries that are not activated. Well, I've got someone here that I thought were activated that says they're not, so I'll have to go back and do that. That'll be like going on an Easter egg hunt. I have one library here that came from, it was free. It's a drum kit that I had to jump through hoops to get it, but it came out of Germany. And if you could figure out in Sprechen Sie Deutsch and figure out how to pull it, once you got it installed, you got it. It still shows up there. So it's drum mica. I'd forgotten about it. Okay, once we get all the libraries downloaded, then we should be ready to plug this in. Then we'll take the next step. Okay, this seems like a little bit of a convoluted process, but we've gone to the URL they've given to us, which redirects, and we've got a 3-step process here we go through. Now, to start this, I needed to log into the account. If you're a new user, you create the new account. But once you log into that account that you've created, then you'll be able to download the software. Now the software you're going to download is going to be everything that's applicable to the Maschine MK3 controller. And it's an incredible device, but once we go through that three-step process, there's three things additionally we have to do. I had to close the application and call it back up, and it took a couple hours to get all the libraries installed. So I'm just saying to let you know, the application to control this also gets installed with those virtual instruments. It's not a separate download. You don't have to. Of about 33 libraries, I have 14 that are not installed. All of these are going to require additional steps. I'll deal with those later. But just the ones that have installed, those took about 2 hours. And after logging out, logging back in to the Native Access application, it now shows me the applications I need for Maschine. Now, even though this hardware is Maschine, there's software called Maschine as well that I have to download. It's already there. Maschine 2 and Maschine 2 Factory Library. And if I just click on it, on the right, it'll show me what I've got with the serial number, tactile creative music production system, the flexibility of computer-based production, plus the ease of a hardware groove box. It says this is the full version, version 2.12.1, and I can click on the install path, and from here I can also change the path. And from here it shows the changes, and under the installation path it shows the application location is on C drive, and the 64-bit VST is also on the C drive. So I'm going to have some stuff in both places. But at any rate, this is a tactile creative music production system, the flexibility of computer-based production, plus the ease of a hardware groove box. I click over here on Maschine 2 Factory Library. That will click with another box that shows Maschine 2. Same information. So I've got Maschine and Maschine 2. In any of these libraries, if I click on it, it'll bring up the information on the right-hand side and show me what it is. So this is pretty exciting. I'm stoked. We've got this much done, so the next thing we need to do is we're going to need to connect this, and we'll go through that step because we need to power down the machine, reboot it, then connect. Okay, now that we have the Maschine software installed, we need to install the driver. That's the next step. Okay, the things we've downloaded are the Native Access installer, the MK3 firmware updater, and the Maschine for PC, which should be the driver. So we need to get that driver installed first. That's next. So we're going to give it access, and we're going to install the driver. Okay, this is important. Welcome to the Native Instruments Maschine MK3 setup, and this is the second part. Please make sure that the Maschine MK3 hardware is not connected during this installation. Please choose a maintenance operation to perform. We'll click on Next. The Native Instruments Maschine MK3 driver setup is now ready to configure Maschine MK3 on this computer. Click Next to begin, click Back to change, click Cancel to exit. So we'll click on Next, and we are installing the driver. You have successfully completed the Native Instruments Maschine MK3 setup. To close the wizard, click Finish. Now the next part will be the firmware updater. Now all these things that we're doing and all the steps we're going through, we'll put all this information up in the description of the video to help you, so when you get ready to do this, you'll be successful with your install. The next step being, now that we've installed the driver, we need to power down the computer. We will then power up the machine, which means plug it into the electrical, also plug in the USB cable, power this device up first, and then power up the computer second. So let me shut the computer down by closing all the applications, and I've bookmarked everything and I've downloaded everything I need. So that means closing Native Instruments. So now we can power down the computer. Shutting down. So we'll find a suitable plug, so we make sure this is on the UPS. Computer shut down. I'll plug in the wall wart, plug in power. We'll now plug in the USB cable. I'll plug it into the device first. Nice they include the cable. You know, printers, they don't include that cable anymore, which is kind of a bummer. Okay, power is plugged into the wall. Power is plugged into the device. The USB cable is plugged into the machine, and now that will be plugged into the computer on one of the DAC ports. Now we've got everything plugged in. We've got power plugged in. We've got the USB cable plugged in. Powered through the UPS, plugged into one of the audio DACs on the TRX40 Designare. We're going to turn this on, and I'll show you overhead what you can expect to see. This is kind of neat. Power button right here, top left. Power on. You'll see it light up. And right here, Machine, Production, and Performance System. I thought that was kind of neat. Okay, so now we're going to turn on the computer, and then once the computer's up, it should recognize this. And once the computer comes back up, yep, there it is, setting it up. setting up a device. We're setting up Maschine MK3 here on the bottom right. So we'll give it a minute to do its thing. There it is. Device is ready. Maschine MK3 is set up and ready to go. Okay, step 1's complete. That makes step 2. The third thing we're going to need to do is update the firmware, which means we need to power down, power back up. So in reverse order, we'll turn off the computer first, then we'll turn off Maschine, because we're going to update the firmware. Okay, computer's shutting down. Once the computer's shut down, then we'll turn Maschine off. Okay, computer is off. We'll turn Maschine off, wait about 10 seconds. And during that 10 seconds, I'll just say this is an amazing device. If you're concerned about the price, well, for the class of device that it is and what it does, it's pretty amazing. And I think once we get a chance to start doing some work with it, you'll see how amazing it really is. But it's another tool. It's an investment. So if you're into sound design, or if you're a musician, and if you're not a musician, you'll be able to articulate on this and have some fun. Device has been off for about 10 seconds. We'll turn the device back on. Now we'll turn the computer back on. And then we're going to update the firmware. Specificity counts, details matter, so hope you guys find this useful. I'm eager and excited to get the other libraries installed, but because it's another set of steps, like I said, it took me a couple hours just to get the libraries downloaded that I've got that would let me in one-step process, which is more than what comes with this. But it took 2 hours, which means I've got still a couple hours of work to do to get the other instruments installed, but it's going to be worth it. Okay, device is on, Maschine is on, computer is up. Now we're going to do the firmware. So we've already downloaded the firmware. I've just got to go find it, which is on the spinning drive. I have a shortcut to it. And the firmware updater I need to extract. And all I need to do now is run that file. So we'll click on update. And if you notice, please connect your machine and rescan. Okay, it is connected. So let's do a rescan. I'm going to unplug it for just a second. I'll plug it back in. I'll do a rescan. Okay, it's not picking it up, so I'm going to go through the process again. Try that one more time. We'll turn off the computer. We'll shut off the device. We'll give it 10 seconds. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005, 1006, 1007, 1008, 1009, 1010. Okay. We'll turn it back on. It lights up again. Kind of cool. We'll turn the computer back on. We're still connected. Let's see if we can get in this time and do our thing. Okay, we're back up and running in Windows. So let's try again and do our firmware update. Firmware update. Connect your Maschine MK3 and click rescan. Well, I don't know why it's not picking it up. So what am I doing that I need to run the firmware updater from the unzipped file. Okay, I'm going to go to Device Manager and see what's going on. Something wrong with the driver update. It didn't take correctly. I'm going to unplug it, plug it back in, and I'm going to tell Windows to rescan. So for some reason we're not seeing the device correctly, and I don't know why. We've installed the driver. Windows said it saw it. I'll see if we can update the driver. It sees it as USB 2. So I'm going to browse the computer this time for the driver. Native Instruments, Maschine MK2. This is Maschine MK3. So let's try have a disk. Let's go to, let's see here just a second. I got another idea. Downloads, public downloads, incoming, applications, Native Instruments, Maschine. It says driver setup is done. Something's not picking up correctly. I'm going to execute it again. One more time. Now I don't remember seeing this a while ago. Driver setup. Installing the USB driver. The ASIO driver. And that time it took. Okay, that's interesting. So even though I installed that driver, I had to install it a second time. I saw stuff the second time I didn't see the first time. Don't know what the deal is with that, but that solved it. Okay, so we're good to go now in Device Manager. We're seeing the device correctly. So I'll close Device Manager, and let's go back to the firmware updater and see if it'll see it correctly now as well. And yes, it shows the old firmware, which is 141, and shows the new firmware 145, and gives the serial number of the device. So a firmware update is available for your Maschine MK3. To update the firmware now, click Update. So I'm going to do that. And wow, it lights up. Let me show you what you're seeing. So as it does a firmware update, those buttons are kind of all glowing red. This is still consistent and those are still off, but these right here are glowing red, and on screen they look like they're blinking, but from here they're a steady glow of red. Okay, and I've got a comment on the screen that says your Maschine MK3 failed to boot into firmware update mode and could not be properly updated. To boot your Maschine MK3 into firmware update mode, please power cycle it and retry. Okay, the power cycle meaning we need to shut down the computer, shut down machine, wait 10 seconds, turn machine back on, turn the computer back on. So I will clear this out. So we'll quit, zoom out of that, close all that down, and we will tell the computer to power off. Once the computer powers off, then we'll power off machine. Wait another 10 seconds. Okay, computer's off, and I will turn power off to make sure it's completely off this time. Drain the power. Power's drained. I'll turn the switch back on in a minute. Okay, we're going to turn this device off. We'll wait 10 seconds. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005, 1006, 1007, 1008, 1009, 1010. Okay, we're going to power the device back on. Press the power button. It's been 10 seconds. Turn on the power supply. Power on the computer again. Back into Windows we go. And we'll go at the firmware again. So it's interesting. It looks like we had to hit that driver twice. I saw things with the driver the second time I didn't see the first time. I don't know what that was about. But anyway, the driver is installed correctly. The device is seen in Device Manager correctly. So Windows is coming back up. As soon as we see it, I'll go to that screen. In case we see something on the bottom right. Windows blinks. Windows is back up. Okay, we're up and running. Just for grins, I'm going to go to the control panel and double check the Device Manager again. Control panel, Device Manager, and everything looks good. Sound and video, Maschine MK3. This time it's properly recognized. Okay, I'll close all that down. Let's call up the firmware program that I have on the spinning drive. Firmware updater. We'll execute that. And this time it popped right up. All right, maybe we'll have better luck. Maschine MK3 updater. The updated firmware is 145. Installed firmware is 141. Shows a serial number. And again, a firmware update is available for your Maschine MK3. To update the firmware now, click Update. To update the firmware later, click Quit. So we're going to update, and I expect the lights to dance again, so I'll see if I can flip over and show you that. But let's watch what happens on the screen. Okay, Update. Your Maschine MK3 failed to boot into firmware update mode and could not be properly updated. To boot your Maschine MK3 into firmware update mode, please recycle it and click Retry. Well, okay, so what I think we need to do next time is when we turn the power off, I'm going to disconnect the power and see if that makes a difference. So we'll try that. But we do have the driver installed correctly. We just need to get the firmware update applied. So, again, we'll power down the computer. You do what you got to do. Okay, computer is off. I'll turn off the power supply, drain the power, drained. Now this time I'll turn off machine, and I'm going to disconnect the power. And we'll wait 10 seconds. I've disconnected both connections, both the USB for data, both the power cable. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005, 1006, 1007, 1008, 1009, 1010, 1011, 1012. Okay, I'm going to plug everything back in. It's about as disconnected could be. Plug power back in. We will turn it back on. Device is on, it boots up. Let's try it again. Third time's a charm. Power supply is turned on. Energize. Computer's on. So let's see what happens. Kind of persnickety about getting that firmware update done. Windows is coming up again. You know, I'm kind of curious if maybe the DAC we're going through on the USB port could be causing a problem. And if it fails this time, I'm going to change the USB port to a different port and see if we can update the firmware. Okay, we're back in Windows. Alrighty. Third time's a charm. Same USB port. Public, downloads, incoming, applications, Native Instruments Firmware Updater. It shows what we have and what we need. I'll click on Update. Let's see what happens. It lights up in red, and again, not going to work. Okay, this time, because we've tried this 3 times and we absolutely had the power turned off, disconnected, we're going to change USB ports and see if that makes a difference. Which means when you're updating the firmware on the machine, on the Gigabyte Designare TRX40, you don't want to use one of those 2 DACs to do that with. That's interesting. Had that issue with some of the decimators about using them on a USB 2 or USB 3 port. So let's swap it out. So what we'll do, quit the application, and we'll shut Windows down again. And which port will we go to? I think let's go to a port that says that is USB. We'll go right below the keyboard and mouse. That'll work. So computer's off, power supply's off. I'm going to drain it just to be safe, to be absolute. Power's drained. That's off. So we're going to turn this off. We're going to wait 10 seconds, but I'm going to go ahead and pull the power on that cable. I will disconnect the USB cable on the computer, and I'm going to change ports. So the top 2 ports are where the DAC are at. The next 2 ports where I have keyboard and mouse are USB 3. It says USB 3.2, but it's either USB 3 or USB-C. So I could go to those ports, or I could go right below. I think I'll go right below. So that's 1, 2, 3, and I'll stay to the one on the left, and let's see what that does, which puts it right above the USB-C port if you need reference point. Okay, that's correct. That's the USB cable's installed. USB cable's installed. We'll put power back to the device, plugged it in. We'll turn it on, and this will be number 4. And then we'll turn the power supply on, energize the computer. Trip number 4. Let's see what happens. You know, to reiterate, we're seeing this the first time like you are. So if you get one of these, you'll kind of know what to do, what to expect, and how to handle it. Is this going to work? I have no idea. I expect it will, but that doesn't mean it will. Computer's booting. Back up into Windows. Okay, here we go back into Windows. Again, I'm going to go check Device Manager just to make certain. So let's take a look. Control Panel, Device Manager, and there's Machine. So all is working well. So we'll close all that down. Let's go back and find the file on the hard drive, and let's try that firmware update one more time. So let's see what happens. And update. Again, the lights come on and turn red on the machine, and this time it's going to work. Well, isn't that interesting? So I think we all learned something new today. Patience. So please stand by while your Maschine MK3 is being updated, and do not disconnect it from USB. Nope, 4th time's a charm. So to reiterate, what we found is if you have a machine connected to your Gigabyte Designare TRX40, do not use one of the 2 top USB ports where the audio DACs are at. It interferes with this process. That's curious. Didn't expect that. But I've had this with decimators before where they are finicky about which USB port you use on a computer to configure them with. So I thought that might be the issue. Now, turned out, good guess. But you never know. You just have to keep plugging. So we're updating the firmware from version 1.4.1 to 1.4.5. Like I said, I've been sitting on this thing for quite a while, and I've been really eager to do this, but I've been kind of busy. Oh, and now it says on the screen of the machine, please start machine controller, editor, or press Shift plus channel for MIDI mode. Okay, to the screen. The firmware of your Maschine MK3 was successfully updated. Congratulations. I will click on Finish and say hallelujah. Done. Kind of cool when something works. Kind of sucks when it doesn't, but you know, we just keep plugging until we get it. So for anybody that's a beginner doing one of these things, do not be dismayed. You can get it working, but you know, it's a process. You just have to keep working through it. Now, I've never installed one of these. I've been eager to do this, but again, like anything else we do, I need to see this the way anybody else would see it so we can document it, because if you're trying to install one of these and you can't get it working, I hope the processes that we found and what we went through and what we did will help you to diagnose your problem. So let me show you overhead. And what we see here is, if you'll notice here, it still says machine, but over here it says, please start machine controller editor or press Shift plus channel for MIDI mode. Okay, so now we have the hardware ready, the firmware updated. The next step is to call up the application that runs this, let it scan to see whatever software is going on, and then configure this to work with that. So let's take a look. So we're going to look at configuring Machine 2 to work with Maschine MK3 hardware. So machine 2, right here, the icon. We're going to execute that application. We'll call it up, machine, and it's scanning. It's scanning VSTs. So every time it comes up, it'll scan. Hardware hasn't changed any. We don't have it configured yet to run. Okay, here we go. Now the first thing is the interface. The driver, the device, status running, shows the inputs. Oh, and now the interface has come up on the device. I wasn't watching because I was looking at the software, but now the interface has come up on the device. I'm going to show you that right quick. So now we have over here group, master group sound, and apparently it's waiting, and this side empty. So it's waiting to do something. Cool. So that's progress. So we have machine 1 left and input left and input right, and it shows machine on the other device is not connected. So we could do 1 left right, 2 left right. So we'll just leave it like it is for the moment. And for output, machine left right, headphone left right, and then the main left right. So it's pretty well configured and ready to go, which is nice because everything else was a little bit involved to get that working. So what we're going to do now is take a look at audio preferences. The driver, let's check that out. The driver should probably be ASIO. Latency 6.6 milliseconds. If we use the other driver, okay, so looking at the interface for the input, the driver is the Wasapi exclusive mode. The device, NVIDIA high definition audio. We need that to be, so I have NVIDIA and Realtek. Interesting. If I try to run Wasabi in the exclusive mode, I'm on NVIDIA. I don't have access. But when I run the Wasabi on shared mode, I get machine. So we've got to be on the input Wasabi shared mode. If I go to ASIO, I also get it, but I also get latency. So Wasabi shared mode. The latency is 10 milliseconds. Whereas the ASIO is 6.6. But if I go to that, oh, now machine's showing up again. It wasn't a while ago. All right, on input, if we do Wasabi exclusive, we get 0 milliseconds. But we don't have access to the device. So we either have to go for Wasabi shared mode, which is 10 milliseconds. That gives us machine. Or we have to go to ASIO mode, which gives us 6.6 milliseconds. So that's the best we can hope for. We can also now control and change the sample rate. 48. 44.1 is CD quality, and of course 96, if we change that, our latency goes down. Most everything is going to be probably, wow, if we go to 44.1, we get 6.9 milliseconds. At 48, we get 6.6. That's an odd standard to be running for a sample rate. But if we leave it at that, we can also go to the ASIO control panel, and this is the control panel for machine. Streaming processor state, output latency 8.5 milliseconds. That's a lot. The buffer size 1 millisecond. Now we've got 192 samples in the process buffer. The sample rate is 48. If we change our buffer to 2 milliseconds, we get a latency 9.5. If we leave it at 1, we get 8.5. So we're going to have to accept. That's the best we can do. If we go to 96, we get down to 8.3. If we go to 44.1, 8.8. And 48, 8.5. So process buffer, 192 samples. Let's leave it at that. And let's see how that's going to work for us. So we're going to leave it at that. So we're going to use the ASIO driver, device, the Maschine MK3, status running, sample rate 48. We've looked at the ASIO configuration panel. We're going to accept our latency of 6.6 millisecond input, processing 4 millisecond, output 4.5 millisecond, total 15 millisecond. So we've got our machine on the input left and right. Let's look at the output. Machine left and right. So we've got main left and main right, and then for out to left and right we've got headphones. So we'll leave that, which is a default, as it is, and all we have to do is here at the bottom click close. So I'm going to leave that like it is. Let's go to MIDI. MIDI mode is off. If we had another device, that would be important to do. Input, and we only have the Maschine MK3 here for extended control. And the output, again, the Maschine. The default template, plug-in, library. Wow, that's lots of stuff. Plug-ins, all VSTs, hardware, pads, LEDs, touch strip, on, pads, linear, audio outputs. We can route the main to the headphones from here. And touch sensitivity. Touch sensitivity right now is at 4. Touch auto right. We don't have that set. And for the colors, the way the buttons look. Okay, scene, auto, group auto, sound, user group color, load with colors. So we'll go back to general, load last project, recording audio, preferred project folder. We can set that later. Metronome enable, we check that. Auto enable when recording, comes in handy, keeps you on tempo, unless you're keeping tempo with the video. Volume control, signature, we're in quarter time. Count in length 1 bar. Link enabled. Input quantized, that's not enabled. And usage data tracking, that's enabled. So audio is the big deal, that's what we need to check. That's all set. So I'm going to close that. So that's the interface for a new project. Okay, now we're going to go to Windows and do some more configuration to make sure this is working the way it needs to. So we're going to follow the manual. On Windows, open Start, Control Panel, Hardware and Sound, and then on Sound Control Panel, select Playback tab. So let's do that. So we'll go to Control Panel, we'll go to Sound, Playback, we will select, the machine is already set, 2-channel 24-bit. Down here in the bottom right, audio is set for Machine. Audio set for Maschine MK3. So any sound coming through this computer is going to go through Machine. So now we need to plug in our speaker. That was quite an ordeal getting the firmware updated. I got that done. Now the speaker should be off, so we're going to need to plug that in to a UPS, and we're going to need one of our audio cables. 1/4-inch TRS tip ring sleeve. I got longer than what I need because I'm not sure sometimes, and I didn't want to have to be concerned about it being too short. I believe these are 6 feet. 4 feet would have been adequate, but you never know. We'll plug one speaker into this device for line out. We'll do left. We will plug into the speakers, also left. Turn the speakers on and slowly turn up the volume. Volume on the line out, midway up. Volume on the phones is down, volume on the line out is up. So line out into the speakers. Okay, let's see what we got on the manual. The machine controller is set as the default audio device. We've proved that down here in the bottom right where it says main. We have a speaker plugged in. These are active speakers, self-powered, have a built-in amp. Line out left, right. And we're on the line out left on this, and we plugged into the line left on the speaker. Start the playback of a project in Machine or an audio file on your computer. Okay, so we can test. Let's do an audio file. To make sure we have the right amount of sound. So what I need to do is a search of the drive for star.wav. And we got some WAV files on here, so let's play one. And I don't hear a thing. It should be going through this device to the speaker. Oh, guess it helped if I turn the speakers on. Okay, speakers on. Let's play our WAV file. Okay, so we have sound going through and coming out on the speaker. Fantastic. Now what I've got to do is get audio routed so that you guys can hear it. So we've got to get audio out of here on the other side into the mixer. So what I've done is I've proven I've got sound routed from the computer through a WAV file that's going through the machine, coming out of machine, coming to the speaker. I used to do sound reinforcement, but it's been a while. So we'll come out the other side, and I'm going to go into channel 1 on our Focusrite mixer. I'll put a link up on this. Comfortable amount of sound. Let's see if that gives us a little bit more gain. Yeah, I know how it sounds here, but I don't know how it sounds there. I'm watching it visually, so the sound should be matched pretty closely, so that as I trigger that sound to hear it on one side, on the left side, you're getting it on the right side, which is going into the mixer, where my voice is at, coming into the video switch, and going to the video recorder. So, we've installed the software, we've installed the driver, we've updated the firmware, found out about what we had to do about that. So for an unboxing, setup, and configuration, the next step would be to work with the pads and get some instruments coming through on this. So the first thing we did was make sure we had audio routed, which we do, triggered from the computer. Now we need to get sounds triggered from here, from machine. Alrighty, let's take a look. Start playback of a project in machine or an audio file. Okay, we played an audio file. What we need to figure out now is how to do a project, machine and a recording setup. I just want to hear it. So let's click on play live. Creating a studio track or performing live. Performance grid. So if we go to, let's get some stuff up here so we can hear it. Wish that was a touch screen. Projects. I'll click on load, discard, loading. We got sound coming out. Okay, so here's what I did. First of all, you got to get something loaded into it so you can hear it. So I'll show you what I did. I've never used this thing before. I've read about it, heard it, been impressed with it. So I'm hearing it for the first time and I'm figuring it out. Instructions could be a little bit clearer. That's just my opinion, but I'll show you what I did. Let's go overhead. Okay, what I had here, these buttons across the top, I needed to load, so this button loads. So once I loaded, that came up. So what I want to do, if I use this button, it corresponds to next. Or if I want to scroll down, that'll scroll with this knob. And say I try chances, I'll click load, and I don't want to save because then I have to go back to the computer. I'm just going to click on discard. It'll load it, and now so now we've got sound coming out of the device. We can hear it. It's a beat machine, but we can load other sounds into it. I'm just picking what came, and I just pulled one up. I have no idea what we're going to hear. But I still need a pad that'll give me a tactile feel. So, in a nutshell, we have it up and running. That was our goal. An unboxing, a setup, and configuration. Should be pretty simple and straightforward. Wasn't as simple as I hoped it would be, but it is what it is. I've got to spend some time with it, and we might do another video on it later. What I want to do now is I want to show you some links now that we have this configured, and you can see that a lot of time here is going to be spent with this, because I got this to use this as a sound effects trigger, but that doesn't necessarily mean the sounds that are here are the ones I'm going to use. But I wanted to get it up and running to prove that it works. Proof of concept, that's what I've done. So let me show you some links we got. That is really pretty cool. Okay, let's go over to another computer, and I'm going to show you some links. Now, what I want to do for this part is I want to show you this is one device of 4 different types. We're going to put a link up to all this stuff. So to reiterate what I mentioned in the beginning, we're going to show 4 different instrument trigger devices. I'm going to show you 3 different types of speakers for the reasons of the connections on the back to give you some options, and I'm going to show you a couple of different types of speaker stands. Speakers need to be at ear level. I'm about 6'2", so speaker stands that I was going to use come in about 4.5 feet, which would have been too short. Sitting down, they'd have been fine. But the concern is, well, let me show you. We'll go through that. We'll do it in reverse order. I'll show you the speaker stands, the speakers, and then the instrument. Okay. Couple of different types of stands. This is one type that most people are probably familiar with. Now, all these links are going to go into Amazon. Now, this is Pile. These stands are floor stands. They've got a 3-point base. Now, I'm going to tell you what I like about them and what I don't like them real quick. It's a triangular base, which is fine, but that can be disconnected. What that needs is to take the triangle and create a pyramid. And that's what a 3-point base really should be. Let me show you. So we go from that base. You see the price of those. They don't take up a lot of space, but my concern is if they break. And if those bases snap off, they can be fixed. It's kind of like fixing a radiator. You can use some of that metal epoxy and stick those bases back on, but you shouldn't have to. My concern is if you've ever been on a stage, everything up there moves. Something like this, absolutely no way. In a house, in a space, or in an office where you're not moving stuff around, they might be okay, but I'd be concerned about them. A base needs to have some stability, more stability than what this gives. But I want to show you this one type. Let's look at number 2. Another one to look at, and these are for studio monitor speaker stands. And these are the kind like you'd use in a performance. Now, if you notice, they have the 3-point base, a pyramid type base, like a regular stand. You know, a regular stand for like you do in content creation, like you use for lights, speaker stands, that sort of thing. It's a 3-point. Now, the problem with those, the higher you go, the bigger the base goes. So you have to allow space for that. But you have stability with that kind of stand. And again, the price is pretty close to the same. These are a little bit more expensive. These are heavier duty. But that would be my preference. Now, we're going to take a look at some speakers, and I'm going to show you the ones we've got. Now, speakers have always been something that's very subjective. You want something you can listen to hours on end, wherever you're at with monitors. I like studio monitors because I'm funny about sound. I remember I used to listen to hours and hours of speakers. Again, one of my favorites was Serv & Vega, or Pioneer had a set of speakers that were wonderful studio monitors. JBLs are good too. You don't hear much about JB Lansing, but I want to show you these from Mackie. This is what I've got. This is the second set I've purchased. I like them. Now, this is the Mackie CRX 5-inch. It's available as the standard Bluetooth. The model I happen to have is the Bluetooth. A little bit more expensive, but not a lot if you need that feature. What I particularly like about these are the connections in the back, because I can plug in on the inputs the 1/4-inch TRS, and I've also got the RCA phono plugs, and with the cable that comes with it, I can plug that straight into a computer, no sweat. Or with the Bluetooth, I could hook it up to my smartphone, so I like that. It has a switch on the back. You have the powered primary speaker, and then you have the secondary speaker, which is the satellite speaker. Includes the cable to connect those two speakers together. It works in a professional environment, also works in a consumer environment. And I'll show you here on the back of this, if I can, from their picture, just a real quick. There's the inputs. You got the XLR, you got the 1/4-inch TRS, and then you got the RCA plugs. Now, if you'll notice, that shows a stereo in jack on the Bluetooth speakers. That used to be there. That's what I expected on the ones I've got. The model I have does not have that. They no longer put that 3.5 millimeter plug on the back, which is kind of a bummer, but as long as you're using the RCA to 3.5 millimeter, I get it. But I'd prefer that. But the ones I have, that's not there, so they need to update the speaker They need to update the pictures about the speakers. Let's move on to the next one. So going from the Mackie monitors, the next one I want us to look at are Edifier. I've never used that brand. I don't know a lot about them. They're ported from the front. This is a bookshelf speaker, 42 watts RMS, controls on the side, and again you have the primary and the satellite. But what I don't like about these on the back, from what I can tell, it's strictly RCA. It does have the speaker tabs for left-right, but it's got the RCA phono only. That for me is kind of a bummer, and hooking up to a professional device like this is not a consumer product. I'm a bit concerned about something like that. So they may be great speakers, but they don't do what I want. I can use them. I'd have to use adapters. I've used adapters before. I just prefer the 1/4-inch plugs built into the speakers. So let's look at the next model. And you get an idea of the price. They're less expensive. Now, PreSonus is another brand that I would highly recommend and look at. These are roughly the same size, maybe a little bit more compact. I like the settings on the back. The nice thing about these, yes, they're ported. We have the 1/4-inch TRS, tip ring sleeve, but we also have the RCA. These do not have the 1/4-inch plug, but they do have a control for the high and the low, whereas on the Mackie they do not. So you can see there on the right hand side, on the far right you use your speaker cables that goes to the satellite speaker, and you can see your TRS connection for your 1/4-inch, and then you've got your phono plugs for the RCA phono, and then a high and low acoustic tuning. So I guess, you know, for the money, I like the Mackie. If I were to look at a second set of speakers, I'd probably look at the PreSonus. We're going to be looking at some other gear by PreSonus, one of the Thunderbolt 3 audio interfaces. So I'm just saying. And PreSonus has quite an environment for doing audio. And the price on these is pretty good too. So that would probably be the one that'd be the best bang for the buck. Okay, 2 sets of stands, 3 sets of speakers. Now we're going to look at this audio interface and 3 others. I want to show you what's in the family, because this can be used by itself, standalone, with a computer. There's a new version of this that does work standalone without a computer, but for the money, for what we do for content creation, we think this is the best value. To use it by itself or with a MIDI keyboard or with another device, which I'm going to show you right now. And this was something that kind of caught my eye. First of all, we look at the machine. This is the Native Instruments Maschine MK3. And that's what we have here. Pretty cool device. It's phenomenal for what it does in such a small box, but we can use this as a controller. We might do a little ditty on that sometime for whatever, but the purpose of this, we've achieved that. So next. So the next device we're going to look at, iKai. Now this is a little bit different, a little bit higher end pad, but also less expensive. Again, you have to remember, Maschine includes Complete Select. There's Complete Select, Complete Ultimate, Complete Ultimate Collector's Edition. So 4 versions. The integration of that software with this is what put this over the edge for me. Yes, it's an expensive device, but the integration is just amazing. If you want to spend more time and less money, then this other device is a way to go. But I still can't use, it's still a finger pad. I still can't use sticks on it. And that for me is a bit of a problem, but that's another one we'll have listed that I'll show you. The next one going up in the line, and this is where it gets kind of interesting. Now this one has more of the percussive tactile feel from Roland. Roland is known for their MIDI instruments, but I could use a pair of sticks on this. I've got 6 pads. Price-wise, it compares with this, but I think this has more value for what it does, even though it's strictly fingers. So looking at the Roland device, I can use that with sticks. It's more of a percussive type instrument. Price-wise, it compares about the same. But again, feature for feature, I think the Maschine is a better deal, better bang for the buck for the money. So I'm just saying. but to add something like that for the percussive. Now, if I was looking at something like that and I wanted to go with that, I might go a step further than that, and I'll show you that. And this would be a full kit for the price. Now see, I don't need that. That may be more complete. It's a little bit more money, but I don't need all that. When I work, I'm either standing or I'm sitting, and I want something I don't want something I sit down at like that to work with, because it's not how my battle station's set up. So I can do that, and I've done that, but that's not what I need now. This fits what I do. The other device from Roland would work into my workflow. That doesn't, but I wanted to show you where that goes for the kind of device for the price. So that gives us 4 different devices. And that all brings it right back to the Native Instruments Maschine MK3 drum controller. So I hope this looks as good as it sounded to me. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I don't know about you, but my head's spinning because I got to spend some time working with this to figure out how to get it to where I want it, so I can use it on a track to do some triggers for sound design, sound effects, because I got some really wicked libraries I've been really eager to use with this. I've just got to get them loaded. So I've got to go through the install process. So one last thing I almost forgot, there's an application I want to show you for switching your audio interfaces, especially when you're working with something like Zoom and you're trying to figure out where your sound is at because you've plugged in another monitor, or you're watching on the TV from the computer and sound is just somewhere but you're not sure, so that you don't have to go into control panel. I almost forgot. And this little application is called Audio Switcher. I'll put a link up to it. You can download it, but it'll allow you to change your audio devices without having to go into control panel. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. So I hope you enjoyed that. I want to thank you for watching. You guys are amazing. Coming up, we've got a whole bunch more stuff to be looking at. We're waiting on another NVMe drive coming out, which is the Western Digital Black. I believe it's the SN850. We've got a couple of Thunderbolt 3 audio interfaces we're going to be looking at. So again, I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next video, and we are out.